Google has already started testing out a brand new large language model internally, and in some cases through Google AI Studio, and it is incredible. This could be an early look at Gemini 3.5 or possibly Gemini 3 Pro generally available, and this could be coming within the next few weeks. And honestly, I already thought the output from Gemini 3 Pro was already outstanding on its own. Just take a look at this browser-based operating system that it had generated in a single shot. It proficiently coded out the core OS level features like a functional Safari, which is just incredible. Functional applications, a dynamic interaction with various sorts of apps, and everything from the layout to the behavior felt intentional and well structured. This alone was already impressive on its own, and this was what the Gemini 3 Pro was able to create. But wait until you see what the new internal tested model was able to produce, which could either be the GA version of Gemini 3 or even the Gemini 3.5 model. And here is that operating system that was developed by this new internally tested model. The exact same prompt was used, and it had generated something honestly remarkable. It fully mimics a Mac OS operating system to the point where it's genuinely difficult to tell the difference at a first glance. This part is just insanely wild because the functionality of the Safari app actually works where you're able to search through different sorts of pages. You have functional apps, and what's crazy is that it meticulously was able to craft everything from the SVG-based icons to the window behaviors as well as layouts and UI components. Every detail feels deliberate, and this model handled the structure, styling, and interactivity with an insane level of precision, which is just great to see. And this is what really makes you stop and think when you ask yourself how much powerful an AI model can actually get. The answer is clearly a lot more, because there's definitely a lot of room left in terms of improving these models based off of the performance we see with this macOS operating system that it generated. Now, this internally tested model that we have seen from Google, it has been codenamed by the Google team, something that I don't know why it was named this, but it's called Snow Bunny. Now, this model is quite remarkable in terms of its coding capabilities, and it's definitely on another level in comparison to many of the models that we see, even Opus 4.5 with its agent capabilities. Leaks are also pointing towards changes in context handling, as well as something that could jump in terms of its quality of output, as it can obviously output more lines of code. And in the preview of what I saw, it is also something that is capable of doing better with authentic coding. If your only visibility into production is logs and metrics, you're missing most of the story. You might know that something broke, but not who it impacted and why it happened, or what users actually did before it failed. Now, a developer on Twitter named Leo, I don't know if you know him, but he has done a great job in benchmarking off of his own hieroglyph benchmark. And it is a valuation of lateral reasoning capabilities across different frontier large language models, whether that's GPT-5 High or Gemini 3 Pro, even versus the other Lithium Flow checkpoint, which was something that initially released before the Gemini 3 preview. And that was a checkpoint that actually did better than the Gemini 3. But you can see that Snow Bunny Raw and Lesser Raw, I don't know why they named it this, but these two models, these two variants that Gemini is internally testing, has reportedly done better than Lithium Flow even, as well as Gemini 3 Pro preview, which is incredible. Just shows for the task that he has ran this model for, it has been doing quite well and is genuinely in a league of its own. And the gap is pretty incredible in terms of its performance versus the other models. Now, this is pretty interesting. Here is a test that was sent into the Gemini 3 Pro, the GPT 5.1 High, the Opus 4.5, and DeepSeek, where it was asked to create a standalone HTML file with no external resources libraries that only renders a highly realistic candle flame and animation and melts the candle over 10 seconds. And you can see that I guess Gemini probably did the best. This was with the Gemini 3, and you can see that it probably did the best in terms of the animation as well as the flame that actually went out. But now take a look at what the Snow Bunny was able to output. You can see that it did even better than what the Gemini 3 previously did with animations with the candle actually melting. And it is also showcasing how the candle wax is accumulating at the bottom, the melted version of it. And in my opinion, I actually thought the Gemini 3 Pro did a better job with the lighting of the candle. But still, this is quite dynamic and it is something that's extract that you wouldn't typically see from an AI model. So the Snowbody did a better job with this. But what's this is a generation from the Kumi K2.5 model. And this is something that also did a remarkable job. In my opinion, it did the best out of all the models that we saw, which is just incredible. Here's a demo of a front end being created by the Snow Bunny model. And in this case, it did a pretty remarkable job in terms of generating all the components of this front end. Now, it's coming to a point where AI is getting really good at generating front ends for different sorts of dynamics and structures are based off the layout that you described. And it's all about prompting, guys, when it comes to generating these different landing pages. If you are to prompt the model perfectly with what you want, it is going to do a remarkable job. It is where it requires a detailed instruction to get the best output. And in this case, it did do that with this landing page that it was capable of generating in a single shot. Chhattisla did also a really good job with one of these demos. And I also recommend that you follow him because he is the one who was actually creating all these demos. Where in this case, he had created an Eiffel Tower in Voxel. And you can see that this is a pretty great generation in terms of generating the Eiffel Tower. There is different options that it also generated, which is something that you wouldn't typically see with a typical voxel generation, like a day and night option. You also have a golden hour option, nighttime toggling a sparkle as well, which I don't think seems to be working. But that is the only downside, I guess, with this generation here. Snow Bunny had actually one-shotted a generation of a Windows clone. And you can see that this one also looks pretty indistinguishable with a typical real Windows operating system. You can see that the SVG is perfect with icons. You have functional apps, which is also great. It's not perfect, but still, it did a great job in terms of its overall generation, which is nice to see. And overall, I'm starting to see that AI is getting to a point where it's going to be really hard to distinguish what is actually AI generated. Obviously, we already have a hard time with that with AI image generation as well as videos. But now we are going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to tell if certain front ends are actually generated by AI or not. This looks like an emulator, but it's not. This is something that the AI had actually created because this Snowbody model was actually able to create the Game Boy Color in a single shot, which is remarkable with multiple mini games built within it. You have Galactic Boy, you even have a Snake game that's built within, and it is also potentially available to host a Pokemon game, which is actually really great to see. You may also be able to access these models through Google AI Studio through the A/B testing. And you might have noticed that it has gotten a revamp in terms of its UI, which could potentially be hinting at the release of the GA version of the Gemini model, or potentially maybe working towards releasing the new 3.5, which I doubt, but there is still a chance. But I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys, and got some sort of value. This new model is incredible, and it is definitely groundbreaking in terms of its coding capabilities. The rumor about his context is definitely going to be interesting to see. Hopefully, they do increase it so that the quality of output would be even better. But obviously, it'd be more expensive to obviously the consumers as well as the company itself. But let me know what you guys think. But with that thought, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. And lastly, make sure you guys subscribe, turn on notification bell, like this video, and please take a look at our previous videos so that you can stay up to date with the latest AI news. But with that thought, guys, have an amazing day, spread positivity, and I'll see you guys really shortly.